I want to start with this idea of a potential military strike on targets in Venezuela by the United States. The president denying that he'd made a decision to strike military targets in Venezuela. Look, whenever we have a conversation like this, we're talking about a military operation, but we're also talking about the economics of it. So we're going to try to separate
market implications.
The market implications from everything else. I am curious about the market implications if the U.S. were to strike Venezuela. What would that do for oil?
So I can see why oil spiked a little bit earlier in the day when it wasn't exactly clear what's going on in Venezuela. I think it's still not exactly clear what in the world all of these U.S. warships are doing right off the coast of Venezuela or approaching Venezuela. But it doesn't seem like we're about to strike Venezuela, which I think was probably never really in the plans, mostly because we're not about to invade Venezuela. I think that there's a concern, certainly, that if there is any kind of political instability in Venezuela or military activity in Venezuela, that could have the potential to impact Venezuela's oil exports. Now, keep in mind, Venezuela's oil is actively being sanctioned. So all the oil that it's selling is really all on this kind of black market, goes to China or goes to Iran, or at least it used to be going to Syria. And so technically it's not really, or it shouldn't really impact the larger oil market. But of course, everyone knows that there's this large black market for sanctioned oil going on. So, the potential for any kind of disruption does impact the oil market. And so we saw that happening today.
Hey, so what's a more important fundamental story when it comes to the energy markets, the oil market? Is it really what's going on in overall global supply and demand?
I do think that is the most important thing underlying, but I do think that there is a lot of confusion about what exactly is going on with supply and demand, because you have some of these big, global kind of agencies that keep track of supply and demand saying, hey, we're in a massive oversupply right now. And then on the other hand, you have other agencies like OPEC saying, no, we're not in such a big oversupply. And you have, the Saudis coming out and saying, we're not all that oversupplied. OPEC is going to pump more oil. And so I think that there's some confusion, or at least disagreement, about how much oil is on the market, how much oil is being pumped, and how much and what oil demand is. And I think that that's understandable given how incredibly complex the oil market has become recently with all of this sanctioned oil going different places, and they're saying it comes from one place when really it's coming from the other. And so there is a lot of confusion, rightly so. I also think that there is a lot of trepidation about the economic condition, where we're going economically, kind of as a world, as the global economy. And so that makes it hard for people to figure out, how much oil should we be pumping. And so that's one of the reasons I do think that we have seen oil prices remain fairly low. And at the same time, we're not seeing any kind of pullback in terms of production.
Well, let's go there. There's a story on the Bloomberg today, Ellen. U.S. oil production climbed to a fresh record near 13.8 million barrels a day in the month of August, according to a monthly government report. Number was higher than official figures previously indicated. Apparently, there are some government reports that continue to come out.
Okay.
Sorry. But so U.S. oil, our production here, I think I heard something earlier on Bloomberg Surveillance, maybe it was with Tom and Paul this week, about, just the amount of oil that we are producing here in the U.S. What's your expectations, and where is all this oil going? And do we?
Yeah, this is a great question, because, we have, we get these reports weekly, but they're not all that accurate. What they really are estimates. And so once we start to get these reports coming, it's now the very end of October, and we're finding out what really was produced in August. And wow, it's a lot higher than we, within the forecasts were. That really says something. I mean, 13.8 million barrels a day is an absolutely massive amount of oil that we're producing in the United States. And it's clear a lot of that oil is going into our own refineries. It's being used, it's being turned into products that we're using, but we're also exporting a lot of oil. We're exporting to Europe, we're exporting to China, we're exporting, all over the place. And I do think that that is very, very significant at this time. I do think there's a lot of discussion about, has fracking peaked? Is the Permian peaking? And when we get a data point like this, it tells us that maybe it's not peaking, because there were people have been looking at these estimates and saying, hey, maybe we're finally seeing it coming down. Well, maybe it's not, or maybe it's not going to come down as fast as they thought it was. And that's going to lead to more supply being on the market than people thought there would be. So sometimes we see a disconnect between what the forecasts and what people think it should be, and then actually where it is going.
Where does China fall into this in demand or lack thereof coming from China right now?
That is a really interesting question, because China has definitely got strong demand, but then the question is, okay, is it going into their, is it going into their economic system? Is it being actually used, or are they putting it into their absolutely massive stockpiles of oil? Is it going into their kind of independent refinery system that's producing products and then selling them all over Asia? And so it's hard to get kind of a handle on what China's economic situation is, what they're producing there, when we're not entirely sure where all that oil is going. Plus, now you have this issue with Russian oil. We know that China imports a lot of sanctioned Russian oil. They import a lot of Iranian sanctioned oil. They import Venezuelan sanctioned oil, and they hide a lot of that. And so we may not know exactly where their oil is coming from, but it's possible that soon they may be at least cutting back on some of their imports of Russian oil. And so that is important for the future of global oil markets.